Let's look at Eros. Is it love or lust? Welcome to Truth Talk, Wisdom Walk with C.A. Curtis. I'm Carolyn. C.S. Lewis, in his book The Four Loves, describes Eros as romantic love with a clarity he would have missed if he had not met the love of his life, Joy Davidman. Their friendship grew from common interests as professors and authors. He knew the feel of falling in love with one special woman, his friend, who became his wife and then his lover. Close, face-to-face, heart-to-heart, being together, they shared passion, tenderness, and their faith in God. Lewis believed we're capable of both moral reason and raw sexual instinct. But that with true romantic love, we transcend mere need with a desire to give of ourselves. The joining of a man and woman in a covenant commitment reflects the Genesis story of God's love for mankind. Man is to lay down his life for his wife, even as Jesus gave his life for mankind. Yet, taken out of the context of love, covenant marriage, and family, the raw power of Eros passion can become the primary and can lead to hedonism, which includes idolatry and adultery. Before learning about the loves from Lewis, my idea about Eros was more about sex hormones than romance, perhaps due to what I thought about Greece. Cultural hedonism and phallic religion were a distraction of weakness for them before the brute strength of Roman legions. So I hesitated to use the term Eros, equating it with that lust, which it morphs into in a sex-saturated culture. And that weakens the culture, and they are ripe for conquest from anyone who wants to take over. However, Lewis separates Eros from lust and holds it to a high, committed, and monogamous standard. Eros is of the sensual desire for a particular chosen person. Lovers describe intimate feelings for one another, which would be odd, inappropriate, and awkward among family and friends. An impassioned lover's kiss is unique to lovers, while ordinary, just little kisses are for anyone close, including our children, family, and friends. But Eros will claim it is sovereign above all else, proven by heights of its own sensual passion alone. Given the chance, past vows and promises to others melt in the heat of strong feelings. Promises to love the lover forever are given with certainty, yet the thrill of a new moment lends Eros once spent no lasting energy or power of commitment at all. Those caught up in Eros could and do sometimes come to believe that the powerful desire of their flesh feelings must be noble, therefore holy, filled with a sense of awe and destiny. Well, aside from hearkening back to pagan religious temple practices, this view is explained by some highly overeducated intellectuals. They actually believe that adultery is due to the evolutionary drive to mate and beget a perfect human specimen. To some, that theory explains and justifies the whole affair. It's a Hollywood fantasy. 2 physically gifted and endowed humans, electrified at first glance, drawn together at an opportune time when their passion must be fulfilled. What about those specimens they already begat, or abandoned, or aborted, or perhaps Eros defiled is a devolutionary drive to mate, simply to mate, with no care whatsoever for character, virtue, or the survival of your own children or of our species. What if we have devolved from our garden paradise and are thus enslaved by our fleeting, fickle, hedonistic feelings? Just look around. Eros is the most sensual and passionate of human loves, and as such is the most vulnerable to failure, the weakest if left alone to its own devices. And if left alone, it turns to lust, which looks more like cannibalism than love. Lust fire set loose devours self, others, hearth and home, and may torch the entire community. So what does it take to restrain the fires of passion? We avoid facing and hate to admit the depth of depravity unleashed by technology and ignored by broken laws. We can and must get serious about exposing, shutting down, and prosecuting perpetrators who defile all that is good and just. We must get serious about freeing those trapped in sex trafficking instead of protecting the privacy of those who play with fire. Convicted pedophiles and perpetrators must be locked up, while women and children imprisoned as sex slaves must be set free. This was not something C.S. Lewis dealt with in his book, although it certainly was embedded in pagan culture. It's hard to return to a lighter note. But the poem Ambulance and the Valley was about addictions and could as well be applied to Eros gone bad. Doctors, social services, and public health departments and pastors cannot contain our pandemic of unfaithfulness, infidelity, STDs, pornography, broken homes and hearts. Perhaps the standards we once respected are fences we should rebuild. Eros must not be underestimated. Gone bad, it has left mayhem, death, and grief in its wake throughout the ages. Civilizations set up boundaries to govern Eros with marriage and family rules. Wise parents set up protections and rules for their daughters and sons. Wise couples put fences around their own relationships. It is wise to guard our own hearts. In these recent decades, protections were eroded by those educated beyond common sense and wisdom. What protects us? What love is powerful enough to bring balance and correct all loves? Family love helps remind sensual passion of promises made, while friendship reminds passion of personality and respect. However, it is agape which strengthens us to resist idolatry and keep covenant promises. It is agape, that unselfish, godly love, that reminds us to love truth more than feeling good. Agape, love from God, love of God, gives us perspective. Influenced by Darwin and having left his Jewish foundations, Freud saw no framework for a creator's design and love which could supersede physical drives. He saw no hope for rescue from the conflict between sexual instinct and loving people, except to balance between the two with guilt as an ever-present struggle. Repression of gratification and sublimation, he believed, was man's fate. However, what if the remedy for guilt was and is the faith he outgrew, the faith that set the legal and ethical foundation for the advances of Western thought and culture in the first place? What if teaching and practicing self-control as a noble good makes guilt less likely. What if the sexual revolution of the 60s demoralized and weakened us? What if that was the purpose and intent of our enemies abroad who seeded our sexual revolution? Now that's a history worth exploring at another time. Eros is needed for our existence, but not needed for our survival. It is a chosen passion focused on an exclusive love which promises forever, but lacks forever power unless stabilized by stronger loves. So how do we prepare for such a love? If it is a love to last, is true love worth waiting for as a high standard which sifts the wheat from the chaff? Self-control protects us from using others and being used in return, while need leaves us vulnerable to declarations which carry no weight. Temptation is part of life. It was part of mine. It is in walking away from temptation that we become strong and victory is won. Remember the moment? I remember it. I remember it well. The joking, chiding, meeting of the minds, which as friends may work just fine. Familiarity grew, and families joined the fun until one day someone crossed the line. Flattery sparked a desire, and you had a choice to make. Just one time alone, perhaps that'll be all right. Really? I'm your David and you're my Bathsheba, he declared. Almost caught up in the moment, yet snapped back to reality. I knew that story. King David's lust resulted in adultery, the murder of Bathsheba's husband, their baby's death, and then his repentance. Yet his grandkids were later caught in similar moral depravity, despair, and more death. Not a good future to choose for my family. And so I walked away, eternally grateful even to this day. There is no need to deny that passions screamed in protest, but I took it as an exercise which would serve me well, and it has for decades. It was love of God that turned my heart back to my husband where it belonged, and our love grew with passion's deeper bonds, which were proven over time. It is in the arms of fidelity where one is satisfied, and this trust and security offers a space where profound love can grow. Now, security and good humor are needed when faced with the awkwardness and nakedness of normal life interruptions common to the marital bed. And prudery aside, a wholesome perspective is shown as biblical writers insist that the marriage bed be honored and protected from adultery, while husband and wife are not to deprive one another of intimate touch unless temporarily by agreement. Now, that advice followed could resolve a lot of marital conflict. To assume young adults lack the ability for self-control suggests they cannot delay gratification. It is especially arrogant to think they cannot because some adults will not. This is part of the thinking behind sex education, which fails to promote the importance, moral value, strengths, and freedoms of abstinence and virtue. Knowing your value and keeping yourself pure and true to your principles and your future goals is empowering. Waiting for true love and commitment is protective. And the ability to delay gratification is important to any success story. We are taught and expected to control our bodily functions as small children. That has to do with toilet training. Why exclude the reproductive system when so much is at stake? True love is worth waiting for, and false love, lust, is not ever worth having. As the soldier poet Lovelace wrote, I could not love thee, dear, so much, loved I not honor more. Learn to love at love's best. Love truth, be grateful, and do good. And thank you for joining the journey of Truth Talk, Wisdom Walk. Please like and share with your friends. The views expressed on Truth Talk, Wisdom Walk are presented for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only. Until we meet again.